2 spoons of baking soda. That little orange box in the back of your cupboard, that is all it takes to clear the bugs, the blight, and the rot out of your garden. Not the $40 bottle, not the spray with the skull on the label. 2 spoons of the same powder you use to take the smell out of your refrigerator. I know how that sounds. Stay with me. Because the thing they sell you at the garden center for $19.99 does the very same job that cost you about 11 cents. And the folks who sell it have no reason on this earth to tell you that. None at all. We have done this for generations. My people, the plain folk, we never had the money and we never had the want for a shelf full of poison. We had a box of baking soda, a watering can, and the patience to learn what the good Lord already put in front of us. I grew up in Holmes County, Ohio. No electric in the house, no truck in the drive. And I will tell you, by the end of this, exactly how to stop the powdery white that strangles your squash, the aphids that curl your leaves, and the slugs that eat your seedlings in the dark for less than the price of a cup of coffee, the way my grandfather did it on his back 40. So, before we go one step further, do me a small favor. Tell me down in the comments what state you garden in and what is eating your patience this year. Is it the white powder on the leaves? The little green bugs? The holes in the cabbage? Write it down. Because what works on one of those is not exactly the same as what works on another, and I want you to find your answer in this. Stay with me to the middle, especially because that is where I will show you the one mistake that makes baking soda do nothing at all. The reason most people try it once, see no change, and go right back to buying the expensive bottle. They were 1 spoonful away from it working. They just never knew the trick that makes it stick. Now let me tell you why this matters. Think about what you have spent. Really think on it. The little bottle of fungicide, the bag of slug pellets, the aphid spray, the systemic granules you shake around the roots, $20 here, $15 there, $8 for the hose attachment. A homeowner in this country spends a fair piece of change every single summer fighting the same handful of problems over and over, and the problems come right back. And here is the part that turns my stomach a little. Most of those bottles are mostly water. You are paying for water, a splash of something, a colored label, and a sprayer that breaks by August. The active part, the thing actually doing the work, is often a few pennies of powder. They just put it in a fancy jug and charged you for the jug. My grandfather would have called that selling a man his own well water back to him. I remember the summer the squash went down. I was maybe 9. The big leaves on the Hubbard squash went pale, like somebody had dusted them with flour, and then they went gray, and then they curled up and died from the outside in. My mother did not panic. She did not send my father to town. She went to the kitchen, to the same box she used for her bread, and she mixed up a watering can right there at the pump. 3 days later, those leaves had stopped spreading the white. The vines held. We ate squash clear into November, stored down cellar in the straw. I did not understand it then. I just knew it worked, and it cost us nothing, and nobody outside our lane seemed to know about it. It took me 40 years and a good bit of reading to understand exactly why. And the why is the part the garden center will never print on a sign. So let me give it to you plain. That white powder on your squash, your cucumbers, your zucchini, your roses, your lilacs, that is a fungus. Powdery mildew, the books call it. It is alive, and it is greedy, and it spreads on the wind like dust. It lands on a leaf, sends down little roots into the surface, and starts feeding on your plant from the skin. Left alone, it covers the whole leaf, blocks the sun, and the leaf can no longer breathe or make food. The plant starves with its belly full of disease. Now, here is the thing about that fungus. It is fussy about one thing above all. It likes the surface of the leaf to be a certain way, a little bit acid, a little bit neutral. That is its comfort. That is where it thrives. Baking soda changes that in 1 second flat. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. When you dissolve it in water and spray it on a leaf, it makes the surface of that leaf alkaline, sweet, the old folks would say, not sour. And that fungus, those little spores trying to take root, they cannot stand it. The change in the surface pulls the water right out of their cells. They shrivel, they collapse. They cannot get a foothold on a surface that has gone alkaline on them. It is like trying to plant a seed on a hot stove. Nothing takes. That is the whole secret. And it is not folklore. The outside world finally caught up and proved it. Cornell University, one of the big agricultural schools up in New York, studied this very thing. A plant doctor there by the name of Kenneth Horst spent years on it back in the late 1980s and into the 90s. He put sodium bicarbonate up against powdery mildew and black spot on roses in real trials, measured it, wrote it down, and what he found is that it worked so well, it got a name. Gardeners still call it the Cornell formula to this day. A university with laboratories and grant money confirmed what my mother did at a hand pump with a box from the cupboard. The recipe they landed on is about as simple as it gets. 1 tablespoon of baking soda. That is one of your 2 spoons. Into 1 gallon of water. And then this is the part to remember. A small amount of light oil, about a tablespoon, and a few drops of liquid soap. You mix it, you pour it in your sprayer, and you coat the leaves, tops and bottoms, until they are wet but not dripping. You spray in the early morning or the cool of evening, never the hot middle of the day with the sun beating down, or you can scorch the leaves, and you do it every 7 to 14 days, and again after a hard rain washes it off. That is it. That is the bottle they sell you for $20. A spoon of soda, a spoon of oil, a few drops of soap, and a gallon of water. But, and here is where most folks go wrong, here is the mistake I promised you. They leave out the oil and the soap. They just dump baking soda in water and spray it, and it does almost nothing. It beads up, it rolls right off the waxy leaf, it dries in spots, and the fungus laughs at them. Then they decide baking soda is an old wives' tale, and they march back to the store and hand over their money. The oil and the soap are not extra, they are the whole trick. The soap breaks the surface tension so the spray spreads out flat and even and clings to the leaf instead of beating up. The oil makes it stay there through the dew and the morning. Together, they turn that baking soda from a powder that washes off into a coat that sticks and works. Leave them out, and you wasted your time. Put them in, and you have the same thing in that fancy jug for pennies. My grandfather did not know the word surfactant, but he knew you put a little soap shaving in the can so the water would, as he put it, lie down on the leaf instead of standing up on it. Same knowledge, different words. He was 100 years ahead of the label. And that is the quiet power of tending a garden the way our grandparents did, with patience, simple ingredients, and knowledge passed down without a price tag. If you want to go even deeper into that world, I want to tell you about something that was put together for exactly this kind of gardener. Eli Yoder has written 2 books that carry this same spirit all the way through. The Garden Blueprint, which is old-fashioned pest cures that cost pennies, and the Harvest Blueprint, which covers Amish soil and storage secrets for bigger yields. Together they are called the Complete Garden Field Edition, and everything in them is the kind of plain, proven knowledge you will not find on a label. You can find the link down in the description, and it is worth a few minutes of your time. If what we are talking about here speaks to you, now back to the bugs, because that is where it gets good. Those soft little bugs that cluster on your new growth aphids, the green and black ones, the ones that turn the tips of your roses and your beans into a curled, sticky mess, they are soft-bodied, no shell, no armor, just a little bag of fluid with legs. And anything that draws the moisture out of them is the end of them. That same baking soda spray, the one with the oil and soap in it, does a number on them too. The soap and oil break down the waxy coat that keeps a soft bug from drying out, and the alkaline soda does the rest. You spray right onto the cluster, onto the underside of the leaves where they hide and breed, and you do it in the cool of the day. They do not get up and walk away from it. They are stuck where they feed, and that is where it gets them. I will be honest with you, because I will not sell you a miracle the way they do. The spray has to touch the bug. It is not a poison that lingers for weeks and kills everything that wanders by. That is actually the good news, not the bad. It means it is gentle on the bees that come for your blossoms and the ladybugs that eat your aphids for free. You spray where the trouble is, you hit the bugs you can see, and you go back in a few days for the stragglers. That is the plain way. You tend your garden instead of dousing it. And the cost of not knowing this, added up over a lifetime of gardening, 20 years of buying aphid spray at $15 a bottle, 2 or 3 bottles a summer. That is hundreds of dollars, maybe more than $1,000, handed over for a problem a box of baking soda solves on a Saturday morning. Money that bought you nothing your own cupboard did not already hold. Now let me tell you about the slugs, because the slugs are personal to me. There is a particular cruelty to a slug. You set out your seedlings, your lettuce, your cabbage starts, your young beans, you water them in, you say a quiet word over them, you go to bed, and in the night, in the dark and the wet, the slugs come up out of the soil and the mulch, and they shear those seedlings off at the ground. You walk out in the morning to bare stems, a whole row gone, nothing left to even show for the work. The English world sells little blue pellets for this, and those pellets do kill slugs, but they are not kind to a curious dog or a barn cat or the birds that eat the dead slug after. We never used them. We never needed them. Baking soda again. A slug is mostly water held in a soft, wet body with no skin to speak of. Soda is death to a thing like that. You sprinkle a thin line of dry baking soda around the base of the plant, along the edge of the bed, across the path the slugs travel. When that soft body drags across the dry soda, it pulls the water right out of them. They cannot cross it. It is a wall they will not touch, and the ones that try do not get far. The trick with the dry method is to keep it dry. Rain or heavy dew washes it away, and you have to lay it down fresh. So you put it down in the evening when the bed is going to stay dry overnight, right before the slugs come out to feed. That is the window. That is when my father would walk the rows with the box and lay a thin white line like a fence the slugs could not climb. Do not heap it on. You are not building a snowbank. A thin line is all it takes. And a thin line keeps the salt from building up in your soil, which matters. And I will come back to that because it is important, and the people selling you things will never warn you about it. So now you have 3 of your worst enemies handled: the white fungus, the soft bugs, the slugs. 1 box, 1 staple, pennies a use. But I can hear some of you already. You are thinking, this is fine for a fellow starting fresh with new beds and young plants. My garden is 20 years old, my roses are established, my soil is what it is, my yard is set. Does any of this even help me? It helps you most of all. Let me show you why. An old established garden is exactly where these troubles dig in deepest. The powdery mildew comes back to the same lilac every single August because the spores overwinter right there in the bark and the fallen leaves. The aphids return to the same old rose. The slugs know every shady, damp corner of a mature bed by heart. A new garden has not been found yet. An old one is on the map. So here is what you do this weekend. With what you already own, no special tools, no trip to town, take a walk with a bucket first. Before you spray a thing, go to that old lilac, that old squash patch, that rose that gets the black spot every year, and pull off the worst of the leaves, the ones already gray and curled and covered. Drop them in the bucket and carry them away. Do not leave them lying under the plant, and do not put them in your compost. Those leaves are loaded with the very spores that will reinfect everything next week. My grandmother called this taking the sickness out of the room before you wash the floor. You are lowering the count of the enemy before you ever lift the sprayer. Then mix your gallon, 1 spoon of soda, a spoon of oil, a few drops of soap. And here is the part for the established garden specifically. You do not just spray the leaves you see trouble on. You spray the new growth, the tender tips, the buds, the parts that are not sick yet. Because in an old garden, you are not curing, you are getting ahead of it. You are coating the clean leaves so the spores blowing off the sick ones have nowhere to land and take hold. You make the whole plant an alkaline surface they cannot move into. Do that once a week through the muggy part of summer on an old garden, and you will watch a problem that came back every August for 10 years simply not come back. No new beds, no new plants, no digging anything up. Just the box, the can, and a walk through the rows you already have. And for the established beds where the slugs have ruled for years, lay your thin white line in the evening around the plants that always get hit. You know which ones. You have lost them before. Protect those first. There is one more thing for the old gardens, and this is the part nobody tells you. After years of buying those expensive sprays, your beneficial insects, the ladybugs, the lacewings, the tiny wasps that eat pests for you for free. They get knocked down right along with the pests by the harsh stuff. An old garden sprayed with poison for years is often a garden that has lost its own free helpers. When you switch to the soda spray, which spares them, those helpers come back. Within a season or two, you have an army of free pest control you were killing off without knowing it. That is the quiet gift of doing it the plain way. You stop fighting nature and let it fight for you. Now, I told you I would come back to the salt, and I keep my word, because this is exactly the kind of thing the label leaves off and a neighbor tells you straight. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. That word sodium is salt, and too much salt in your soil over years of heavy use is not good for it. The plants do not like it, neither does the ground. The people selling you a jug do not care, because they would just as soon sell you another product to fix the soil they helped you ruin. We never did. We used it thin, we used it where it was needed, and we did not pour it on the dirt by the bucketful. So here is how you use it without that worry. On the leaves, in a spray, the amount is tiny, a spoonful in a whole gallon. That is nothing to your soil. For the slug line, keep it thin and only where you need it, and a few times a year, give those beds a good deep watering to flush things through. And if you garden in pots or a small raised bed where things concentrate, lean on the leaf spray and go easy on the soil sprinkling. That little bit of honesty right there, that is the difference between a neighbor and a salesman. A salesman wants you to use more, so you buy more. I want you to use just enough so it works and your ground stays sweet. Which brings me to the part I have been holding for you. The piece I learned late that ties the whole thing together, and that the modern world forgot even as it was proving baking soda works. Here is the surprising part. Sodium bicarbonate, your baking soda is good. But there is a cousin to it that is even better for the garden, and the plain folks stumbled onto the idea of it long before the laboratories named it. It is called potassium bicarbonate. Same kind of powder, same alkaline trick on the fungus. But instead of leaving sodium, that's salt, behind in your soil, it leaves potassium, and potassium is plant food. It is one of the three things every fertilizer brags about. It builds strong stems and good fruit. Think about what that means. The very thing that kills the fungus, instead of slowly salting your ground, actually feeds your plant on the way out. It is the answer to the one drawback of baking soda, and here is the kicker, the part that ought to make you sit up. Those expensive fungicide products the garden centers sell, the ones with the official labels and the high prices, a good many of them list potassium bicarbonate as the active ingredient. That is the whole secret in the jug, potassium bicarbonate. The exact powder you can buy by the pound for a few dollars, sold back to you in a tiny bottle for $20. Cornell knew it. The researchers found potassium bicarbonate worked as well or better than the sodium kind on powdery mildew, and it was gentler on the plant and the soil over the long haul. The companies knew it too. They just put it in a jug, gave it a name you cannot pronounce, and let you believe it was something you could never make yourself. You can find potassium bicarbonate at a winemaking supply shop because folks who make their own wine use it to balance the acid. A pound of it costs about what one little bottle of the fancy fungicide costs, and a pound makes gallons and gallons of spray. You mix it the very same way. A scant tablespoon to the gallon, the spoon of oil, the drops of soap. Same as the Cornell formula, only now the salt that is left behind is feeding your tomatoes instead of slowly souring your dirt. That is the recovered knowledge. That is the thing they buried under a label. The plain people never knew the chemistry name, but they knew that wood ash, which is full of potassium, sweetened the soil and helped the plants, and they knew their baking soda spray cleared the white off the squash. The laboratories took those two old truths, put them in one bottle, and charged the English 30 years of marked up prices for what amounts to a pound of powder from the wine shop and a spoon of oil from the pantry. So you have the whole thing now. The everyday baking soda for quick work, for the slugs, for the soft bugs, for a fast fix on the fungus, when that is what is in the cupboard. And its richer cousin, potassium bicarbonate, for the long season of spraying an established garden when you want to fight the fungus and feed the plant in the same pass and never worry about the salt at all. Let me put the whole method in your hands one more time, plain and in order, so you can do it this weekend. for the white powdery mildew on squash, cucumber, zucchini, melon, rose, lilac, and the like. First, walk the rows and pull off the worst sick leaves into a bucket and carry them away from the garden. Then, mix 1 gallon of water with 1 tablespoon of baking soda, or better, potassium bicarbonate from the wine shop, plus 1 tablespoon of light oil and a few drops of liquid dish soap. Stir it well so nothing settles. Spray the leaves top and bottom in the cool morning or evening until wet but not running off. Hit the healthy new growth too, not just the sick spots. Repeat every 7 to 14 days. And again, after rain, test a few leaves first and wait a day because a few touchy plants do not like it, and you would rather learn that on 3 leaves than 30. For the soft bugs, the aphids, and their kin. Same gallon, same mix. Spray directly onto the clusters and the undersides of the leaves where they breed in the cool of the day. Go back in 3 or 4 days for the ones that hatched after. Let the ladybugs and lacewings do the cleanup because this spray spares them for the slugs. Dry baking soda, a thin line, laid down in the evening around the plants they target and along the edges of the bed. Keep it dry. Lay it fresh after rain or heavy dew. Thin, not heaped, so your soil stays sweet. And once or twice a season, water those beds deep to flush things through and go easy on the soil so the salt never builds. That is the whole of it. That is what my mother did at the pump, what my father did with the box in the evening, what a university confirmed with its trials, and what a whole industry quietly built a business on, hoping you would never piece together. Now, here is the cost of all of this, honest, on the table. A box of baking soda, about $1. A bottle of plain oil you likely already have. A bottle of dish soap under the sink. Or a pound of potassium bicarbonate for a few dollars that lasts a year or more. Set that against a shelf of bottles, fungicide, aphid spray, slug pellets, soil conditioner to fix the salt. The cheap soda would have left easily $70, $80, $100 a summer, every summer for as long as you garden. That is the difference. That is what was taken from you a little at a time with a smile at the checkout counter. My grandfather never had much. He would tell you that plainly and without shame. But he had a sweetness to his soil, a garden that fed a big family, and a deep suspicion of any man who came up the lane wanting to sell him something he could make in his own kitchen. He would look at a fancy bottle, turn it over, read the long word on the back, and set it down, and say something like, why would I buy the dressed-up version of what I already keep for my bread? He was not against the modern world. He just did not see the sense in paying a fortune to be told what his own mother had taught him for free. And that is really what this is. Not a trick, not a hack, recovered knowledge, something that was always true, that the plain people kept using while the rest of the world forgot, packaged it up, and sold it back. Now it is yours again. The fungus, the soft bugs, the slugs handled for the price of a box of baking soda by your own 2 hands this weekend in the garden you already have. You are the kind of person who would rather know how a thing works than be sold a bottle and kept in the dark. You would rather use what nature and the old ways already gave you than overpay year after year for water and a label. That is not being cheap. My people would call it stewardship, not wasting what the good Lord already set in front of you and not letting somebody talk you out of it for their profit. So do the 2 things I asked. First, go down to the comments and tell me your state and what is eating your garden this year, the white powder, the green bugs, the holes in the cabbage, the slugs in the night. Tell me, because I read them, and the more of you who write your trouble, the better I can point each of you to the exact mix for your exact problem. Do not be shy and do not just nod along, write it down where I can see it. And second, if you would like to keep getting this kind of thing, the plain ways, the old knowledge, the cures that sit in your cupboard while the world charges you for the jug, then come along with us. This is not about supporting a channel. It is about a group of folks who have decided quietly that they are done overpaying for what they can do themselves and who want to remember the things that were nearly lost. Join us, and you will not garden the same again. Next time, I am going to show you something even fewer people know. There is one common kitchen scrap you throw it in the trash every week without a second thought that draws the tomato hornworm and the cabbage moth away from your good plants and gathers them in one spot where you can deal with them. My grandfather had a name for it. The garden centers have no product for it because there is no way to bottle it and sell it, which is exactly why you have never heard of it. I will tell you what it is, where to put it, and the one evening of the week it works best. Until then, keep the box handy, keep your soil sweet, and do not let anybody sell you back what was yours all along, because here is one more thing my elders understood that the modern world misses. A garden is not a battlefield to be conquered with the strongest poison money can buy. It is a household to be tended season after season with patience and small daily care. The man who sprays the harshest chemical wins the morning but loses the years. The woman who walks her rows with a box of soda and a watchful eye wins the long stretch of summers that matter, so tend it gently. Watch the undersides of the leaves, pull the sick ones early. Lay your thin white line in the cool of the evening, and trust that the simple thing done faithfully beats the expensive thing done in a panic. That was my grandfather's whole philosophy, and his garden outlived every fad the salesman ever carried up the lane. Yours can too. Keep it plain. Keep it sweet, and I will see you in the next one. I'm Eli, and if you stayed with me this whole way, this last part is for you. Inside the Amish field circle, I pick up right where this video left off with the full baking soda treatment. You can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself. No machine. You belong here with us old ways growers. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime, one click. If this simple trick helped your garden, there's so much more waiting for you right here. Subscribe and keep watching, and let me show you another old secret that truly works.